In November 1095, at the Council of Clermont in France, Pope Urban II issued a powerful and stirring call to arms. He urged Christians to embark on a holy war to reclaim Jerusalem and other sacred territories from Muslim control. This call marked the beginning of the First Crusade, a military expedition that would shape the history of Europe and the Near East for centuries to come. During the 11th century, a formidable new power emerged within the Islamic world. The Seljuk Turks, originally nomadic tribes from Central Asia, they converted to Islam and quickly rose to prominence through a series of military victories. By the late 11th century, they had established an expansive empire, capturing Baghdad in 1055 and exerting dominance over large portions of the Byzantine Empire following their decisive victory at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071. The Seljuk expansion posed an existential threat to the Byzantine Empire, which was struggling to maintain control over its eastern territories. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, recognizing the severity of the situation, sought military assistance from the West. His plea for help reached Pope Urban II, who saw an opportunity not only to aid a fellow Christian power, but also to unify Christendom under a common cause. The Pope's call was strategic, aiming to redirect the violent tendencies of European knights toward an external enemy and away from internal conflicts. Pope Urban's appeal resonated deeply across Europe. Knights, nobles, and commoners alike responded enthusiastically, motivated by religious zeal, promises of spiritual rewards, and the prospect of wealth and land. The promise of indulgence, complete forgiveness of sins for those who joined the crusade, was a powerful incentive. The resulting Crusader army was one of the largest military forces of its time, numbering around 70,000 men, including knights and soldiers from various regions of Europe. Prominent leaders of the crusade included Adhémar of Ripuy, the papal legate, and Raymond IV, Count of Toulouse, alongside other influential nobles such as Godfrey of Bouillon, Bohemond of Taranto, and Hugh of Vermandois. Many of these leaders sacrificed their wealth and status to join the campaign, reflecting the profound influence of Pope Urban's call. While religious fervor played a central role in motivating participants, the crusade also attracted individuals driven by economic interests. Younger sons of noble families, who had little chance of inheriting land, saw the crusade as an opportunity to gain wealth and territory. Merchants, too, hoped to benefit from increased trade routes and commercial opportunities in the East. In 97, after assembling in Constantinople, the Crusader army crossed the Bosporus into Asia Minor. Emperor Alexios provided logistical support, but required the Crusader leaders to swear an oath of allegiance, promising to return any recovered territories to Byzantine control. Although tensions arose between the Crusaders and the Byzantine emperor, they agreed to the terms and began their march. The first major target of the crusade was the city of Nicaea, the Seljuk capital. On May 14, 1097, the Crusaders laid siege to the city. Sultan Kilij Arslan, who initially underestimated the Crusader threat, gathered an army to relieve the city. However, his forces were defeated by the larger Crusader army. After a prolonged siege, Nicaea surrendered on June 18, 1097. But tensions flared when Alexios prevented the Crusaders from looting the city by secretly negotiating its surrender. Following their victory at Nicaea, the Crusaders continued their march through Anatolia. The journey was arduous, marked by harsh terrain, extreme heat, and limited supply. The army was divided into two contingents for easier management, one led by the Normans and the other by the French. On July 1st, 97, the Norman contingent, marching ahead of the main force, was ambushed by Kilij Arslan's forces near Relive. Despite being surrounded and outnumbered, the Normans formed a tight defensive position and held off the Turkish attacks until reinforcements arrived. The combined Crusader forces launched a counterattack, routing the Seljuk army. This victory secured the Crusaders' passage through Anatolia, but the march remained grueling. The Seljuks employed scorched earth tactics, burning crops and poisoning wells, which caused severe hardships for the Crusaders. Many soldiers and horses perished from hunger and thirst. As they progressed through Anatolia, the Crusaders encountered various local populations, including Christian Armenians, who offered some support. However, internal divisions among the Crusader leaders began to surface. Disputes over leadership, strategy, and the distribution of supplies created tension within the ranks, threatening the cohesion of the army. By October 1097, the Crusader army reached the formidable city of Antioch. Situated on the Orontes River, Antioch was heavily fortified and strategically significant. Lacking sufficient troops to completely surround the city, the Crusaders opted for a partial siege, hoping to weaken the defenders over time. The siege dragged on for months, during which the Crusaders faced starvation, disease, and harsh winter conditions. In March of 98, a small English fleet arrived with much-needed supplies, alleviating some of the suffering. Meanwhile, Yagishian, the Seljuk governor of Antioch, sought reinforcements from other Muslim leaders. A large relief army, led by Kerboga of Mosul, was assembled to break the siege. On June 2, 98, the Crusaders, with the help of an Armenian defector named Firos, managed to infiltrate the city and open the gates. They stormed Antioch, massacring many of its inhabitants, both Muslim and Christian. However, their victory was short-lived, as Kerboga's army arrived shortly after and besieged the Crusaders inside the city. Trapped within Antioch and facing annihilation, the Crusaders' morale plummeted. Desperate for a miracle, they claimed to have discovered the Holy Lance, the spear that pierced Christ's side, which inspired a renewed sense of purpose. On June 28, 1098, the Crusaders launched a bold sortie against Kerboga's forces. Dividing into 4 battle groups, the Crusaders marched out of the city at dawn. Kerboga's army, caught off guard by the disciplined advance, quickly fell into disarray. Despite their numerical superiority, the Muslim forces were unable to withstand the Crusaders' assault and eventually fled the battlefield. This decisive victory secured Antioch for the Crusaders, but internal disputes among their leaders delayed further progress. In early 1099, after resolving leadership conflicts, the Crusaders resumed their march toward Jerusalem. The journey south, along the Mediterranean coast, was relatively unopposed, as local Muslim rulers preferred to negotiate and provide supplies rather than risk conflict. By the time the Crusaders reached Jerusalem in June 1099, their numbers had dwindled to around 12,000, including only 1,500 cavalry. The city's defenders, aware of the approaching Crusaders, had expelled Jerusalem's Christian population and fortified its defenses. Lacking the resources for a prolonged siege, the Crusaders resolved to take the city by assault. On June 13, 1099, they launched their first attack, but were repelled with heavy losses. Realizing the need for siege equipment, the Crusaders constructed wooden towers and battering rams, using timber supplied by Genoese mariners. On July 15, 1099, after a coordinated assault on multiple fronts, the Crusaders breached the city's walls. Once inside, they unleashed a brutal massacre, killing thousands of Muslim and Jewish inhabitants. Following their victory, the Crusaders established the Kingdom of Jerusalem, with Godfrey of Bouillon elected as its first ruler, taking the title of Defender of the Holy Sepulchre. Many Crusaders considered their mission complete and returned home, while those who remained faced the daunting task of defending their newly acquired territories. The First Crusade had profound and lasting consequences. It marked the beginning of nearly 2 centuries of Crusader presence in the Holy Land, and set a precedent for future military campaigns. The Crusades also deepened the divide between Christianity and Islam, fostering centuries of mistrust and conflict. Moreover, the Crusades played a significant role in shaping European identity, reinforcing the concept of Christendom and stimulating cultural and economic exchanges between East and West. Despite the violence and destruction, the First Crusade remains a defining moment in medieval history, illustrating the complex interplay of religion, politics, and ambition in shaping the world. Beyond the immediate military and political outcomes, the Crusades influenced art, literature, and architecture. The exchange of ideas and goods between East and West introduced new technologies, such as advanced fortification techniques and exotic products, including spices and textiles, to European markets. The legacy of the First Crusade is thus multifaceted, encompassing both the brutal realities of war and the enduring cultural transformations it initiated.